we are going into class 41 already. We are still in the exile, still in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel. Now we are going into the interesting part of Daniel, which is the prophetic visions that he has. Nebuchadnezzar became a beast for 7 years. Remember? He was away from his empire for 7 years. After that, he repented and he was allowed to come back. When he was allowed to come back, his kingdom grew even bigger. He was in fact allowed to rule for another 20 years. The whole reign of Nebuchadnezzar, about 40 over years. Okay? About 40 over years. He was the longest serving king of Babylon. So we're going to move away from Nebuchadnezzar and we're going to move now, still in the Babylonian era, to a different king. That's where our lesson will start today. Okay, and who is that king? Yeah, will be the last king of Babylon. Why I want to set the stage is because we want to understand why God gave these visions. At that point in time, why God gave particular visions to particular people. So just to have an idea, the lineage of the king, Nabopolassar was the father of Nebuchadnezzar. 20 years. After that, Nebuchadnezzar, because he repented, he obeyed God, he started to worship God. God gave him quite a long reign, which is about 40 over years. I believe at that time, the Israelites in Babylon had a good time. They were not tortured and all that. Then after that, the next king would be a king called Evil-Merodach. Is he mentioned in the Bible? Yes. If you go to, let's go to 2 Kings 25:27. Because it is quite interesting to prove that the Bible is correct. 2 Kings. Now, this is all from historical data. Okay? Now let's compare with the Bible. So this is the time of this king. Would you like to read 27?
On the 27th day of the 12th month of the 37th year of exile of Judah's king Jehoiachin, in the year Merodach became king of Babylon. He pardoned King Jehoiachin of Judah and released him from prison.
Okay, so here you have a mention of this king, even the king that took over after Nebuchadnezzar. You hear a mention of him, and he was a good king because he released King Jehoiachin, son of Joachim. He was taken to Babylon as a captive together with his mother. Then this king released him and allowed him to dine and eat daily in the palace. Now, here it says 37th year of exile. Okay, so if the exile was 597, 37 year will be which year? 597 minus 37?
560.
560, correct. Do you see how it connects? That how data in the Bible is actually coincide or consistent with historical facts. Because look here, he only ruled for 2 years. He goes on to a couple of other kings, and then it comes to this king called Nabonidus. After he became king, Nabonidus, he decided to worship the moon god called Sin. Babylon has a god called Marduk. Remember? Marduk, Nebo, Nebuchadnezzar, those days. But when he became king, he changed the god to Sin, the moon god. So he, instead of ruling the country, he went on to become a monk for the moon god. So he left his throne, he went away. That's why you can see why this date and this date is similar. Correct, no? Belshazzar was his son. So Belshazzar took over his throne. So this is the era now that we're going into Daniel chapter 7. Was Belshazzar a good king? Later on in a few other chapters, you will find that he is not a good king. That's why God destroyed him. So probably under his rule, the Israelites, the Jews and all that were suffering. So this is a time when God comes to Daniel. You see, God comes with prophetic vision at certain times. So here we are now at this era. It's about 500 years before Christ. Okay, 500 years before Christ. And we are going into Daniel chapter 7. Then you are saying, hey, how come you are skipping Daniel chapter 5 and 6? Because, like we said in the first round, our first lesson on Daniel is that the chapters in Daniel are not chronological in order that way. So if we really want to really study and understand the book of Daniel, we should not follow chapter by chapter, which I'm not going to do that. Okay? Because we need to see how history is, the whole thing will unfold if we follow it chronologically. That's why we are going to skip. We have finished already 1 to 4. It's all about Nebuchadnezzar. We're going to skip 5 and 6 because 7 and 8 comes first. So we have our assignment. I believe all of you have received the assignment. Short assignments for each one because I want to really dwell on the chapter 7. So we start off with Team A. Okay. We will also read the chapters. We will do a little bit of close reading on the chapters. So everybody turn to Daniel chapter 7. If you don't have the Bible, somebody please share with them. Daniel chapter 7. Who had the dream and when did he have the dream? And describe the dream.
Okay, during the first year of the king Belshazzar.
Okay.
And Daniel had a dream, and he saw a vision as he lying in his bed.
Alright, so who had the dream? Daniel. Daniel had the dream, not the king had the dream this time. Okay, Daniel had the dream, and it was during the first year of King Belshazzar, the last king of Babylon. Historically, he's not, because he's actually not the throne, but he was reigning at that time. So it was King Belshazzar of Babylon.
And then he dreamed of 4 beasts. First is a lion, bear, leopard, and beast.
Very short and sweet, thank you very much, Celine. We can take turns to read Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 onwards.
In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream with visions in his mind, and he was lying in his bed. He wrote down the dream, and here's the summary of his account.
Alright, here it is, you have Daniel, and it's very interesting because it's dream filled with visions. And what did he do? He wrote down the dream. Of course, he summarized it. He wrote down the dream, meaning that he knows that this dream is important and he needs to convey it. It's not only for him. It's not like Nebuchadnezzar, right? It's for him and probably his people. Verse 2.
Daniel said, "In my vision at night I was watching, and suddenly the 4 winds of heaven stirred up the great sea. 4 huge beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion but had eagle's wings. I continued watching until its wings were torn off. It was lifted up from the ground, set on its feet like a man, and given a human mind. Suddenly, another beast appeared, a second one, that looked like a bear. It was raised up on one side with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, 'Get up, gorge yourself on flesh.' After this, while I was watching, suddenly another beast appeared. It was like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back. It had 4 heads, and it was given dominion. After this, while I was watching in the night visions, suddenly a 4th beast appeared, frightening and dreadful and incredibly strong with large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed, and it trampled with its feet whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was considering the horns, suddenly another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. And suddenly, in this horn, there were eyes. like the eyes of a human, and a mouth that was speaking arrogantly.
Now, Daniel was about 60 over years old by then. This is about 50 years since his captivity. 50 years since captivity. So here he was serving in the court in exile for 50 years. Probably feeling a bit of despair. When is God coming to rescue us? And he had served under 6 kings. See, he was always in the palace. He served under the 6 Babylonian kings already. And suddenly God appears to him and shows him this kind of beast. This is what we call hybrid. He was terrified, wasn't he? He was terrified. The last one, the 4th beast, was the most terrifying. How many horns did he have?
10.
He had 10 horns. And what happened to the 10 horns? These horns, a lot of horns, and then one came out, took out 3. One came out, took out 3, and he was speaking arrogant things. That's it. So here you have the characteristics of the beast. One is like lion with eagle's wings. Wings were plucked up, and he was stood up, and he was given the heart as a man. Then there was a bear raised on one side, and he was drenching 3 ribs, and was told to arise and devour. That means eat. After that, you have leopard, 4 fowls' wings and 4 heads. And you have this terrible beast that he couldn't even identify. Probably one of those in Jurassic Park. He couldn't even identify this, but he noted the horns. And this was done in night. Remember, it says in the night vision he saw this beast. Night vision. And 3 plucked out, and the horn was blaspheming or speaking arrogant things. This horn has a mouth and the face of a man. After that, the scene changes. And what scene would that be? What happens after that in verse 9? How did that dream end?
9. As I looked through, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. The Ancient of Days is another name for God.
Okay, Ancient of Days is another name for God.
His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and his wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming up from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Verse 11. Then I continued to watch, because of the boastful words of the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, thrown into the blazing fire. Verse 12. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority and were allowed to live for a period of time. In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like the Son of Man, coming with the cloud of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given the authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and people of every language worship him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed.
So what scene do you think that is? There's God. Yes, we have met God before in Ezekiel. We have seen God in Ezekiel. We have seen God with the wheels and the flaming fire and all that in Ezekiel. We've seen that. He's sitting on the thrones are set up. He's sitting, and tens of thousands are ready to serve him. Who are the tens of thousands? It doesn't say. It's most likely the angels. Right. Then the court convened, and the books were opened. What does that mean? Judgment day. Judgment day. The scene changes to Judgment Day. Now, whether the scene is linear means that okay, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, this happened, or it could be shifting. Definitely, the scene changes to heaven, then there's a judgment scene, and then after that, what happens?
11, it says that as Daniel was watching, the sound of the arrogant words, the horn was speaking, and the beast was killed and his body destroyed and given over to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their authority to rule was removed, but an extension of life was granted to them for a certain period of time.
Alright, so the judgment scene was to judge who? Yeah, especially the little horn. Am I right? Because it says the beast. The beast. That the horn that was speaking, I was watching until the beast was killed. That means this ugly beast was killed. So the judgment scene that was shown in Daniel 7 is a judgment scene for what? For the beast. For this beast, including the little horn. What happened to the other beasts?
Authority was removed, but the life was extended for a period
Yes.
of time.
The other beasts are these other three beasts, and this was the one that was destroyed at the judgment. After that, this was destroyed. After that, what happens?
Verse 13, it says that he saw one like the Son of Man coming with clouds of heaven, and he approached Ancient of Days and was escorted before him. And he was given authority to rule and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed.
Who is that son? Son of Man. How do you know it's Jesus? How do you know it's Jesus? Did Daniel know it's Jesus? This is Daniel, you know. Has Jesus appeared on the scene as Jesus? In fact, the verse just have a small letter. This one is big letter, but actually the actual one is just a small letter, Son of Man. Do you know that Ezekiel was also called Son of Man? So who do you think this Son of Man is? If you just read that verse itself, one like a Son of Man was approaching, and he went out to the Ancient of Days and was escorted before him, was presented before him. You wouldn't know who it was, honestly. Okay? Son of Man, you wouldn't know. Could be angel. Could be, because this is vision. Could be Ezekiel, because Ezekiel is called Son of Man. Then the next verse gives you an idea. What's the next verse? Verse 14.
Verse 14. He was given authority to rule and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed.
Daniel would have been a bit surprised or curious, because Daniel does not know Jesus the way we know. Correct or not? This is 500 years before Jesus was born. He knows God, Yahweh, but this Son of Man, and why is he called Son of Man? Means that it's quite human form. It's quite human form. But to us today, this is one of the introduction of Jesus into Bible. This one. And because his authority is eternal and will not pass away, his kingdom will not be destroyed. The text itself, we cannot conclude that it's Jesus. But overall, in the bigger picture, we know. Yeah, because Jesus mentions himself, Son of Man, so many times. In the book of Matthew itself, Son of Man is mentioned 30 times. The Son of Man did not come to destroy. The Son of Man, the Son of Man. He keeps talking about himself as the Son of Man. Strangely, Son of God, he calls himself Son of Man, because he put himself into a human form. Then what happens? Now, after all these things, Daniel was a little bit distressed. Let's go to verse 15.
I approached one of those who were standing by and asked him to clarify all this. So he let me know the interpretation of these things. These huge beasts, 4 in number, are 4 kings who will rise from the earth.
Okay, so we're getting an explanation of the 4 beasts. They are
4 kings.
the 4 kings. When which vision had mentioned 4 kingdoms?
Yes, actually.
Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2. Okay, continue.
But the holy ones of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess it forever, yes, forever and ever.
Okay, so this person, probably the angel, he met this guy standing beside, he's still in the vision. He asked for interpretation, and the angel only told him 2 things. And what was that?
4 kings.
The 4 kings and
then the Most High will eventually rule, receive the holy ones. The holy ones.
who are the holy ones? God's people.
God's people.
At that point in time, we must put ourselves in the Israel era. Israel era. We cannot say Christ yet. It's the Israel era, right? Because now it's Daniel speaking. So the holy ones will be his people. His people. So the angel or the man beside him just tell him 2 things only. That the 4 beasts are 4 kings, and then the holy ones of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will take possession of the kingdom forever. That's all. The angel did not even bother to tell about the beast.
Then I wanted to be clear about the 4th beast, the one different from all the others, extremely terrifying, with iron teeth and bronze claws, devouring, crushing, and trampling with his feet whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on his head, and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 fell, the horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spoke arrogantly, and that looked bigger than the others. As I was watching, this horn waged war against the holy ones and was prevailing over them, until the Ancient of Days arrived and the judgment was given in favor of the holy ones of the Most High. For the time had come, and the holy ones took possession of the kingdom. The 4th beast will be a 4th kingdom on the earth, different from all the other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, trample it down, and crush it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will rise from this kingdom. Another king different from the previous one will rise after them and subdue 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High and oppress the holy ones of the Most High. He will intend to change religious festivals and laws, and the holy ones will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will convene, and his dominion will be taken away to be completely destroyed forever. The kingdom, dominion, and greatness of the kingdoms under all of heavens will be given to the people, the holy ones of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will serve and obey him. This is the end of the account. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts terrify me greatly, and my face turned pale, but I kept the matter to myself.
Alright, so did you ever wonder, because Daniel was an interpreter of dreams and visions, am I right? How come he couldn't interpret his own dream? He had to ask. And why didn't, as I was reading these 4 kings, 1 king, I said, why did the angel just name those kings, for goodness sake, right? Just name King of Rome or whatever. It's easier for us. Why just put another king will rise and he will humiliate 3 kings, and then why not be more specific? Why?
Not be able to understand or to grasp.
Alright, and understanding?
Yeah.
What else? Why? Is it enough for us to accept?
More to come now, I believe there's.
You are right. You see, we try to push understanding. And I was like that when I went for my lessons with Dr. Fanwa. I kept wanting to know, who is this? Who is this? Who's the beast? Who's that? All that. And I kept telling him my theories. And he says, wait. It's not all about that. Okay? We must understand God's message in the whole thing. And God's picture of the whole thing. Then what do we do about it? Do we wait, or do we try to figure things out? So Daniel chapter 7 basically says that these 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. So we wait lah. Maybe Daniel chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10 will tell us who are these. Just like the statue, only say one thing, that's it, right? You are the head of gold. After that, that's it, and then of course the ending. You will realize the ending is very clear. The middle part not very clear, but the ending is very clear. Okay? So, what did the scholars do? The scholars started to interpret all this prophecy. Okay? Especially the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we are very good at it. There are different ways of interpretation. Okay, because I want to tell you this, because you are going to Google And you are going to get very confused. Why this person say this person say that, this person say this? It depends on theory you use to interpret prophecy. Last week, I think Pastor already said that the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we follow what they call the historicists. It is not unique to Seventh-day Adventists, I want to tell you. Okay, this came out even before, during the Reformers' time already. And it's not unique. How does a historicist interpret prophecy? They look into history. Oh, this earthquake happened. Yeah, God says this. Remember the Lisbon earthquake? And the sun turning black and the moon turning red? And they take an event and they say, yeah, it's happened. That's what historicists do. Okay, they look out for events. Like 9/11. Oh, wow, that must be a sign of the end time. That's historicists. The preterists, they do the same thing, but they believe that everything happened already. Everything happened already. There's no more end time. End time happened after 70 AD. Means all the prophetic visions of Daniel and that revelation already happened. The futurists, what do you think they believe? That's right. Nothing has happened yet. It will happen in the future. So these are some of the ways that scholars use to interpret prophecy. Then we understand why people interpret differently. Okay, so here example, this is historicists. What do historicists do? This is John. This is talking about Revelation. I couldn't find on Daniel. This is John the Revelator. Okay, he wrote the book of Revelation. He saw things in the future. Now we are here. We see things going back. That's why it's so important to understand the setting. That's why I keep saying, Daniel, stay in Daniel. Don't try to jump Daniel to our time. Don't try to apply Daniel into our time. Because Daniel is Daniel. Alright? So historicists will try to find instances in the history to prove prophecy. That is historicists. Futurists, that's John, that's us, we are still looking. Things like this will happen. The beast and all that will happen. All these lamplight, all these beasts will happen in the future. It's not now. The Seventh-day Adventists believe in historicists, so that's why you will see the Seventh-day Adventists linking Daniel chapter 2 with Daniel chapter 7, clearly. Right? Because from history, like Dan Angela said, from history you know it's Babylon, it's Middle Persia, it's Greece, and it's Rome. And then the little horn will come out of Rome. In line with these two. And the Seventh-day Adventists, who is the 10 horns? Anybody? The 10 horns? Like I said, it's not unique to Seventh-day Adventists because the scholars already said it many years ago, way back in the 500s. They tell you that the 10 horns are the Western European, Heruli, Suevi, Burgundians, Huns, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Vandals, Lombards, Franks, and Anglo-Saxons. These are the European countries of today. And who was the three uprooted? The Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. They show you. I was taught that. I'm sure all your Seventh-day Adventists will have been taught that. Okay, this is it. This is it. These are the 10 horns and one plucked out. And who plucked out? The Roman Catholic Church, the papacy, arose at this time and was given status and held political and spiritual power until the French Revolution. So we are so firm on this. We are so firm on this. That's why we have this 1,260 years prophecy. The preterists believe it happened already. The futurists believe it will happen during the secret rapture. Okay. The historicists believe that it happened 538 to 1798. During these dark ages, the Christians were persecuted. That's why the little horn was persecuting the holy ones. But they forgot that after that, judgment has to come. But judgment didn't come. Like pastors, sun, moon, and all that turning, and then the judgment's supposed to come, but it didn't come. We should use an exegetical method of reading the Bible. What is exegetical method? Bible. Because the Bible will reveal to you that this little horn, the whole beast was destroyed. Right? I'm not propagating any theory. I'm just showing you that these are the different theories that those scholars and the churches believe. Then you got to figure it out, right? And we got to figure out by doing exegesis. And I'd rather do exegesis than go to this. Perhaps you can take history. Yes, it's true. The kingdoms happen and all that. But what is actually the message behind this whole chapter? The angels say what? These are 4 kingdoms. After that, the kingdoms will be destroyed and given to who? Given to the holy ones. So if we exegetically study this chapter without figuring out, who's the beast? Number 1 beast, number 2 beast, number 3 beast. Who is it? Is it the papacy? Is it Trump? Is it, Then we get confused in the interpretation when God is trying to tell us a message. Look, I'm going to kill all of them.
Regardless who these 4.
Yeah, and He's not telling you yet because, you know why?
It's not right.
Time is not right. Time is not right. He cannot review the enemy. Okay, Daniel is a book about God's sovereignty over the nations. We have seen it, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 7 is all about that. Okay, it's all about that. While we are trying to figure out, and the church is trying to figure out and teaching about the little horn and all this type of thing, we lost the message. And what is the message? Yes, right? God's dominion is going to happen. And a lot of times we rip out Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and we form a seminar out of it. Cannot. I realize it. We cannot rip certain prophecies out of context because the context is Daniel time, not our time. Without considering the whole message, the whole context. Pastor always teaches about contextual study. So when we do the exegetical study, we must do contextual study. Don't refer to history so much and all that. Yes, there is part of history that is important. On the other hand, we shouldn't also ignore prophecy, am I right? Some churches don't study the book of Daniel. You know why? Because they feel it's too complicated. But if you really read it, it's not complicated. It's only complicated when we become too smart, am I right? We try to figure things out ourselves when we become too smart. But the final message is this. And what is the final message?
Then the sovereignty, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the dominions will serve and obey him.
What is this message? If you heard this message as Daniel, how will you feel? Comforted. Of course, he was still a bit distressed because see all these terrible things. But God is trying to comfort him to say what?
God's people will rule with him.
Correct. Because he's had 50 years in exile in captivity, and he has served under 6 Babylonian kings, and he's going to serve under another 3 or 4 kings. So the poor guy, it's not all good kings. Some are really bad kings, and he had to serve. But the promise is this: not only God will take the dominion, who will have the kingdom? The people of the saints of the highest one. At that point in time, Daniel knows that it is them, the Israelites. Okay? If we bring it forward, who are the saints? Us, the believers in Jesus Christ. His kingdom will be everlasting kingdom, and all dominions will serve him. If you don't understand anything about Daniel chapter 7, please understand.